Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fully Alive podcast with Michael and Megan Brewski. We're so excited that you're here today. On today's podcast, we're going to listen in to a conversation that Megan and I had during a recent Sisterhood event at our church, talking about conversations. I really do think it will encourage you. It will help you, especially in this hour we're living in, when it seems like there is so much coming from every single direction on how you have to respond and on how you have to act, and to really be able to lean in and have healthy conversations. I hope you enjoy the podcast.
Like I said, we live in a world where conversation is often posts, comments, texts, sound bites. We're just receiving a lot of information. A lot of it's happening on social media, online. We're consuming news. We're consuming a lot of content. But when we don't sit down face to face with other people, we're not necessarily fighting for unity. We're not necessarily learning from each other. We need to sit across from the table. We need to see each other's eyes. I tell my kids especially because they have a lot of conversation over text. If you're a teenager, I imagine most of your conversation happens over text because that's just what's normal. But there's something different about having a face-to-face conversation where you see someone's body language and you see how what you said impacts them. And you got to correct yourself, or you need to, there's a difference that happens when it's face-to-face conversation. And so I think, one, it's important to have that. And two, it's really important to be able to articulate what we believe and what we think, and be able to share our faith. The Bible says that we always should be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you about the reason for the hope that you have, and do this with gentleness and respect. And we can do that when we practice having good conversation.
Yeah, I think if we start here, you started talking about this a few weeks ago, and what we watched happen over the past couple of weeks in our country specifically, we're in the reality that it's only been growing that people don't talk to people or want to have conversations if there's disagreement.
Right.
And we see that happen in the church. We see that happen all across the world, I'm sure. But we can talk about it for us from an Alive Church perspective. We can talk about it, what we see for the nation we live in, and certainly in our communities. And, I remember growing up, I would hear people say stuff, and I've heard this over the past years as well, like, don't talk about politics and religion. And, for me personally, that's what I prefer to talk about.
It's true.
No matter what. But I recognize that for us to be a healthy church, for us to be healthy people, we have to be able to engage with people specifically that disagree with us.
Right.
And
do it respectfully.
In love and all those things. And that's what we want to talk about. That's the reason for this purpose, is because in order to do that, though, we have to first do some self-inventory of ourselves, right? Because I think it's really easy for me to tell somebody why I believe what they are thinking or how they're processing isn't right. But maybe I should start and go, well, what am I thinking or processing? It's this idea of emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence.
I heard, I don't remember who said it now, said, and I mentioned this to you the other day, said that emotional intelligence is the adjunct professor to spiritual gifts.
Yes.
And I really like
Explain
that,
what that means.
especially in a church perspective. And it's part of the reason for us as a Live Church, in our identity statement, we talk about becoming emotionally and spiritually whole, because it's really easy to be like, well, this is my spiritual gift and I want to go use my spiritual gift, or let me use my spiritual gift. But emotional intelligence is in like a toddler level. And so we need the coaching of emotional intelligence in our inner being so that we could actually deploy any spiritual gift the Lord has given to us for greater impact. And so then when it comes to conversations, I have to have this recognition of what am I like?
Yeah. Right.
Which I don't always love it when we're talking about it. If it's like, what is it like to be on the other side of me when you tell me if it's not great, But that self-awareness is so important.
Yeah, emotional intelligence, just for like a quick definition for you, is just, it's about being aware of ourselves and being aware of others, being aware of what I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it. You know, sometimes you get in one of those sticky conversations and like you got a lot of emotion coming up. Emotional intelligence is being able to identify what's going on inside of you, and then also having others' awareness, noticing what's going on in the people around you. How is my presence impacting the people in my home, at my table, in my conversations, at work? What are they feeling? What do they need? And so emotional intelligence is both of recognizing us and being aware of others as well.
Anytime somebody does this, I just do 6, 7. I can't even like watch it happen. This is an area where I need to grow in emotional intelligence.
Emotional intelligence is reading the
Just
moment.
want to recognize that. Read the room.
Read
you know
the
what I'm
room,
saying?
read the room. Yeah. But you know, but I think that is even when I said, you know, just about like text conversations and having social media conversations and just dropping a comment somewhere, we don't have to have any emotional intelligence to do that. Because you don't have to deal with how that impacted somebody. You don't have to deal with the consequence of saying something that hurt someone, or even having to have the bravery to say it because you said it behind a screen. So I think we lose something when we aren't having face-to-face conversations, and we really lose something when we're not engaging in conversation with people who have different experience than us, who have a different background than us, who have a different opinion than us. We really lose something.
One of the statistics that you found in your research, 63% of people say they're less, that they are less kind or respectful, that people are less kind and respectful than they were 20 years ago. And I think that the reason is, and to try to articulate this so everybody understands it, we live in echo chambers for the most part. And when you live in an echo chamber, which means you get fed primarily people who agree with you on every single controversial topic that exists. And those are the people that you then engage with. And so if anybody disagrees, then they are wrong. If anybody disagrees, they're the enemy. And that is, if we're just blunt about it, that is a very non-Christian perspective. Yeah. Jesus, you know, yeah. I'm all, you know, if we're gonna go, let's all go all in, or let's just like, we can't go halfway. And so part of our heart, personally, what we are trying to do parenting, what we're trying to do pastoring, is we wanna be able to engage with people that we disagree with. I wanna be able to engage with people that are not Christian. I wanna be able to engage with people that have different perspective on different theological issues. Not to engage with them to start to prove, but to understand what is going on that they got here. Now, I have breath in my lungs as a believer in Jesus so that people would get saved. So like, I always have a goal. I always have an end goal if I'm talking to a non-Christian, that they would become a Christian. I have no desire to I'll just be friends forever and not lead them to Jesus. I want to lead them to Jesus. But there's primary things and secondary things. And so we have to learn to engage in that, or we're not going to be able to even have the impact that God's called us to have.
I read a quote, and it's attributed to Theodore Roosevelt, but some sources say that it's not documented that he said it. But the quote is good nonetheless. It says, "No one
You
cares."
could just claim it. It's yours.
Mine. No, it's not. No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's right.
And you know, just as you were saying, like, we want to share the gospel. We want to share our lives with people, but they're not ready to hear until they know that you actually care about them. And the number one way that we show people that we care is listening. By being people who can listen in a conversation. Yes, we have to be able to articulate what we think and what we believe and the faith that we have, but we have to be able to listen to people well. James 1:19 says, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And I feel like we all just like need to walk around with that verse in our pocket every day, because we live in a culture, you know, the social media world, the news world, like their goal is to incite anger. Like they want us to get worked up about stuff. That's engaging, right? But that's the opposite. Jesus said we're to bring unity. We're to be peacemakers. And we do that when we are quick to listen, not cut people off, not cancel people who disagree.
I wonder how we can dive into that for a moment, because I'm thinking about in listening, there's something that happens inside that there's like, and all of us, it's different for us, but there's something we hit when you're trying to talk to when somebody's talking to you, there's something that they hit in a moment when you no longer want to listen. And it is that James verse in simplicity, but maybe you and all the women are just better than me, but I struggle sometimes to do certain things the Bible says to do. And so the quick to listen, slow to speak. And I'm just glad to be in a house where I can get help. And slow to speak and slow to become angry. It's that spot that gets hit. And to me, that's one of the big pieces of listening well. I know for me, just even in conversations we have sometimes, and I don't think that it would be something you do intentionally. I don't think it would be if it was the kids or anybody, but you can hit that where you immediately feel like a failure. You immediately feel like you messed up. You immediately feel like you're not good enough. And so then you begin to respond out of yourself instead of responding out of what's happening in the other person.
Right. Often we don't respond to a moment or we don't respond to what is said, but we respond with our whole life. We respond with all of our experience, all of our past wounds, all of the things. You may say something to me and I may get really angry, but what you said wasn't that big of a deal. It actually just hit a wounded place in me from something I feel bad about from years ago, or some lie I'm believing about myself. And it hits a spot in us. And then we make the other person the enemy rather than saying, what can I learn from what they're saying to me right now?
Yeah, that's good.
And I think
so
also,
listen well.
Yeah, listening requires us to listen, not prepare for a response. Sometimes we check out of what someone's saying because we're already preparing what we're going to say back. We're already preparing, our rebuttal or our response. And I would encourage you, a good practice, if you're feeling that in you, that, I have a good response, or I know what to say, or I gotta, tell them my opinion. A great thing to do is instead say, tell me more about that. Tell me why you feel that way. Because they may have a completely different life experience, a completely different perspective on a topic that you can learn from. And when we don't allow people to share that we disagree with, we all stunt our own growth.
Isn't it so interesting? You can tell when somebody's doing that. It's the part when you can be face to face, but you can tell when somebody's checked out of listening and they're coming up with their response, or their eyes start to be a little bit glazed over, or, and I think that, I don't know if this is good advice or bad advice, it's the purpose, but I think interrupting in that moment calmly on either direction, hey, it seems to me like right now, maybe you've checked out. It seems to me like maybe you're not engaged. And I know that's happened to me before. And so to be able to receive that, is really helpful. I think there's this quote I know you like. We talked about it before, and I don't know who came up with it. I've heard it in a lot of different places. But there's two kinds of people in the world, and when you get down to it, and it comes to conversations and connecting, it really is true. A lot of the things we think where we're all so different and complicated, again, might be true, but really it's two kinds of people. One kind is the person who walks into the room and says, here I am. And the other kind is the person who walks into the room and says, there you are. And so if we're going to be able to engage in conversations, we have to be the kind of people that go into the room and say, there you are. We have to be convinced. Even I think about this, even with you being here, and some of you might be sitting with people that maybe you're at a table and you don't necessarily know everybody well, or maybe you feel like everybody knows each other better than you. Or again, there can be all different things that happen in settings and in moments like this. But it's the perspective to understand, like when you see everybody around you, like in the conversation you're going to have in just a few minutes, that they're there for you. Versus you there for them. Does that make, am I like that God would set it up in such a way, you're like, there you are.
Yeah.
And because like God will work something in you in a way that's really strong and allows you to listen and lean in.
Yeah.
Let's hit the last one. Or whatever you want.
One more quick thought.
You're in charge.
We need to wrap it up. One more quick thought on listening. Listening does not equal agreement.
That's right.
Being willing to sit and listen to someone that has a different perspective than you, or a different opinion, a different political opinion, a different theological opinion, a different whatever opinion, it doesn't mean you agree with them just because you're listening to them. We can learn things. I mean, I read some books sometimes from people who I have very different opinions than. I have different theological opinions than them, but I can learn. There's things we can learn from people, and it challenges us. And also, I could go on about this for a while. I'm going to have to wrap it up.
I mean, you're in charge, so you can talk as long as you want.
When we listen to someone who has a different opinion than us, not only does it help us grow, it's not just that it would change our opinion, but also it helps us better articulate what we actually do believe. Even if it's someone who disagrees with you, it helps you solidify your own thoughts, your own beliefs, your own opinions, and your own perspectives, and it broadens them. Because I had a conversation with a friend last week. It's just a really simple thing about a scheduling thing, and she was just like, "Oh, I wish this would happen," and I was like, "Man, I don't want that to happen that way. That would be really hard for me." And she was like, "Why?" And so I told her how that would impact my life, and she goes, "Oh, well, I didn't think about it that way because it doesn't impact me that way." I mean, just a really simple thing of asking how and seeking how does this impact you? How does this connect with your life? Helps us see a greater perspective than our own.
Yeah, a big thing, and I'm walking through this, I see this in parenting a lot, but I also recognize it in me. And this goes a little bit to the debate ideas and not people, but the key to growth is we have to be able to, what we call being criticized, which I don't love that word, but we can't get our identity in being criticized. If we're gonna grow, we need people in our lives to be able to tell us things we need to change. Yeah. We need people to be able to, and not just big things. Like, if that doesn't look good, if you need to spend less time doing this, more time doing this, you need to, hey, when you say that word that way, that's not how you say that word. Hey, these are just things that get said about me. But
that's not what that means, Michael.
But the natural reaction is defensive or shut down.
Yes.
And if we shut down in conversations, the problem isn't just what happens with that other person, which it means that relationship can't grow to the next level. But what's even more significant than that is if we shut down in conversations, we can't grow into the person God made us to be. Correct. We have to be the kind of people who, if it feels like we're being attacked, it's because it's both sides, but we're not being attacked. It might be a thing over here that happened, right. And I don't have to take that on ownership of my identity.
Right. Yeah, just debating ideas and not people is what you're talking about. Like, we can talk about a thing without it being about our person, or who we are, And a lot of us, we get that defensiveness because when someone says something we disagree with, like, we feel it so personally, and our reaction, that anger reaction, can be not to like argue back about we could just be silly about these water bottles. Like, if you think that they should be here and I think they shouldn't be here or whatever, instead of us just having
Seriously,
a different...
what if we didn't have water here and you got thirsty?
I actually am kind of thirsty, so I'm gonna drink one in a minute. But
I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm trying to use an example of something silly. We can have a difference of opinion on whether or not there should be water bottles on the table. Michael having a different opinion about that than me, like, I can quickly go to, well, like, you're an idiot. You don't understand. You don't know what you think. This is an example.
I am so glad this just happened. Because I say so many words that I shouldn't say.
I think we can all agree that happens real quickly, right? We start attacking the person, not their opinion. We start attacking the person, not the idea. And the goal of having great conversation is to be emotionally aware enough about what's going on inside of us, that we can see people, that we can love people who have a different opinion, that we can learn from people who have a different perspective, and that we can love people who are created in the image of God.
Yeah.
The people you disagree with are created in the image of God.